Hello everyone, and today I want to talk about the EU referendum. Obviously, the big vote happens tomorrow. So I'm just wondering how you guys are going to vote. I know how I'm going to vote. I'm not going to reveal it just yet. But let's go through the main issues that are being arose during this EU referendum. The first main one, I think, is the major one, is immigration. Now, people are saying if we leave the EU, then we can control our own borders and we won't have to let in all the EU countries in whenever they want to come in. Whereas the stay argument to that is that if we do leave, then the border control will move from, say, France, Calais, it will move over to our border, Dover, which will just put the problem at our doorstep rather than over in France. You can see both arguments. To the point, I don't think that leaving the EU will sort out the immigration problem in the UK. I don't think a lot of the immigrants are from EU anyway. It's not going to stop the Syrians trying to flee their country coming here. They're not going to say, oh, because now the UK isn't in the EU, I'm not going to go to Britain, I'm going to go somewhere else. They're not going to do that. So I think the immigration thing it's not going to be solved either way. If you stay, then yes, it may be a bit more, but it's not going to solve the immigration problem that so many people think it will. Crime is another one. If we leave, it will allow British citizens to be sent abroad and charged for crimes in foreign courts, often for minor offences. Now, obviously, leaving will stop that. I think it is pretty ridiculous that British citizens have to go back to other EU countries and be trialled for minor offences, yes, but as the saying goes, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. An exit would stop justice from being done for rapists, murderers and other serious criminals who convict offences in Britain. It can only be returned once fleeing abroad thanks to the European arrest warrant. I think the European arrest warrant is actually pretty good. I don't see any problems with that. Obviously, people argue that yes, British people have to go abroad and stand trial for minor offences, but then on the other note, it allows us to arrest rapists, murderers who committed a crime in a different country. We can arrest them here. We wouldn't be able to do that if we left the EU. So, trade is another one. Obviously, I work in a trade. I work for Vauxhall. So, we have major links with the EU. Obviously, 44% of our exports go to EU countries. If we leave, we'd have to arrange a deal to be able to do that still without taxes. Now, Switzerland are a fine example of that. They're not in the EU, but they've got a free trade deal. But going back to immigration, that free trade deal also means that they have to allow free borders as well. So that would be pretty counterproductive if we vote to leave just to arrange for a free trade deal, which will then mean that we have to let EU citizens in the country anyway. So that's a bit of an iffy one. But obviously the EU is preventing us from doing trade deals with China, India, very big markets. So if we do leave, we could see a massive growth in exports to them countries. So there's a fair point on both sides there as well. In the jobs, it says, leave. The danger to jobs has been over-exaggerated by incentivising investment through low corporate tax and other perks. Britain can flourish like the Scandinavian countries outside the EU. It's very possible. I can see their argument, and the stay argument. Around 3 million jobs are linked to the EU and will be plunged into uncertainty if voters plump for exit, as business would be less likely to invest if the country was outside Europe. I don't know if that's true. I'm swaying towards the leave argument on there. I don't think people would just get up and leave Britain because we're outside the EU. I don't think that would be viable. It would cost them a lot of money to relocate. I do understand the argument that a lot of British companies have been relocated with EU money to Malaysia, to other EU countries as well, and outside EU. So the jobs is a sketchy one. I think the whole argument is a sketchy thing. Will we be better off if we leave the EU? I don't think straight away. I think if we leave the EU, there'll be a few years of uncertainty, and if we can get through that, then maybe, yes, it will be better. But if we stay, then we know what we're getting. Someone made the argument of, if we leave, we'll have 355 million more to spend on the NHS. I don't think that's true. I think we'd have to spend the money to sustain ourselves as independent, rather than allowing the EU to semi-control us, so to speak. So it's a pretty tough one. How are you going to vote? If you're willing to reveal that, I'm going to vote to stay in the EU, simply because I think it's best for the future. I've got a small child. I think he'll be better off if we stay in the EU, if we stay together. And I think leaving will be too uncertain. I think prices for everything will rise. Your food shopping will increase, because we're going to have to be paying import taxes. Our wages definitely won't go up. I can see a lot of companies actually doing a wage freeze if we leave the EU, because they won't know how much they're going to have to pay to export their goods. If they export goods, who knows? It'd be very interesting to see what the result is. It's all 50-50 at the moment, so let me know in the comments how you're going to vote, and we will react to the result when it gets revealed. I'm not sure when it's going to get revealed, probably Friday. But if we stay or if we go, I think leaving is uncertain, but staying is uncertain as well, because there has been reports of the EU's crumbling, so we'll just have to wait and see, guys. So, go out, make sure you vote. It's probably the biggest vote of your life. And let's hope for the best, either way. Thanks a lot.